this for the past few hours since it dropped, and I had a whole show laid out, right, and putting together content all the day, putting together content, and then I had to change some of my content because of this breaking news story. So the Mueller report shows Trump campaign did not conspire with the Russian government, but Trump and the campaign are not exonerated. Well, Trump is not exonerated on obstruction of justice. Okay, and you know, you have to actually read the 4-page letter summary of the Mueller report that the Attorney General William Barr sent out. Okay, and I read that this evening. So we'll talk some about that. All right, we have some clips. You know, because you're going to hear a lot about this over the past few days, and the congressional hearings are going to continue. The congressional investigations are going to continue as they should. All right. So we'll talk some about that. And then also the lead story I was going to lead with tonight got bumped to the second story. And I did a hour and a half video broadcast early in the week dealing with how the history of slavery is being incorrectly taught in our schools. And there were some recent stories that took place in March of this year and also February of this year, dealing with a mock slave auction that was held at a school in the New York area. It was a mock slave auction in the 5th grade class, which caused a lot of outrage. Also, you had a story of a Monopoly-like slavery board game called Ending Slavery. And there was a grandmother whose grandchild was in this class, and this was a board game they were playing that was supposed to teach them about slavery and the Underground Railroad and things like this, right? So we're going to talk some about this, because when you have these slave reenactment games or slave reenactments that take place in classrooms, there's studies showing how this psychologically damages children, especially African American children. There's a 52-page study you may have heard me talk about before called Teaching Hard History, American Slavery, Teaching Hard History, American Slavery, which is put out by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Okay, and this is an excellent study from the experts that, number one, documents how the history of slavery is incorrectly being taught in many of our schools across the country. Not just schools that African American children predominate in, but also schools that have a predominantly white student body as well. Okay, so we'll talk some about that. So mock slave auction, Monopoly-like slave game. American schools struggle with teaching the history of slavery. And the reason why it's so important to not just teach the correct history of slavery in this country and the origins of slavery, and this is something that I tried to explain to Reverend Al Sharpton when I called into his national radio show, Keeping It Real, that you hear Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on 910 AM Superstation. And he wasn't fully understanding what I was explaining to him, even though I was documenting it with evidence. Okay, so because when we study the history of slavery in the 13 British colonies, starting with Jamestown, Virginia, 1607, well, the British colonies did not have slave statutes until 1641, starting with Massachusetts. It didn't come to Virginia till 1661. Now it's going to evolve into what we call slavery. But that group of 20 and odd Africans who come into Jamestown, Virginia, August 20th, 1619, and people mistakenly think this is when African people first came to this land. And if you heard the interview I did with Sister Nubia Watford last Sunday, and we were breaking down Nubian women of antiquity, the queendoms of Kush, right? And we were talking about the African presence in this land going back at least 51,700 years ago. If you actually understand the chronology of history, you understand that even though the transatlantic slave trade did happen, African people were in this land we call the United States of America going back tens of thousands of years. But when we look at Jamestown, Virginia, August 20th, 1619, right? If you actually study the history, you'll find that that group of 29 Africans were captured in Angola by the Portuguese. It was 350 of them captured by the Portuguese. And around the coast of Mexico, they were hijacked by English pirates. And it was 50 of them, about 50 of them put on two English ships called the White Lion, Lion, and the Treasurer. And these two ships are going to come into Jamestown, Virginia, August 20th, 1619, and those on the White Lion ship are going to be traded by the English captain for food and supplies. But at this time, when they come in to Jamestown, Virginia, there's no slave codes, there's no slave status. They're actually put into an indentured servitude status, and then after about 3 to 5 years, they're released and compensated with land. If you read chapter 2 of Before the Mayflower by Lerone Bennett Jr., he breaks down this history. But see, a lot of people don't accurately understand this history, and you have to, and America needs a history lesson before African Americans can even get reparations. So see, all this is tied together because a lot of people advocating for reparations don't even understand really the history of slavery in this country and don't understand law. And and all you have to do is look at what happened on Fox News this past week when you had a story dealing with how you had one Fox News co-host saying that America should be given credit for abolishing slavery after 150 years. Katie Pavlich, okay, U.S. did not abolish slavery first or in full, okay, slavery abolishment, okay. So what happens is that America has to have a history lesson. Otherwise, when you're pushing the when you're pushing a bill or when you're pushing the concept of reparations, you're going to be met with insurmountable backlash because the proper argument is not being made, and you're speaking to people who largely don't even understand their own history. This is why you got a lot of white supremacists running around with the Confederate battle flag of Northern Virginia under General Robert E. Lee's army, and they call it the Confederate flag. They don't even understand the history that they claim is theirs. So you think they understand our history? No, they don't. So America has to have a history lesson. So in our second hour, we're going to be joined by Dr. Talitha LeFlouria. Now, Dr. Talitha LeFlouria is the author of a fantastic book called Chained in Silence. Chained in Silence, Black Women and Convict Labor in the New South. Chained in Silence, Black Women and Convict Labor in the New South. Okay, now if you've heard of the documentary Slavery by Another Name, she was her work was cited as a source for that documentary. Okay, and she's a historian, and she's going to be speaking at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History coming up Tuesday, March 26, 2019, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. in the General Motors Theater. All right, and she will be speaking on when slavery is erased from plantations. When slavery is erased from plantations. So we're going to have her on in the second hour. We'll talk some about her book, Chained in Silence, Black Women and Convict Labor in the New South. And this deals with a history of African American women being sentenced to the convict leasing system and chain gangs, things like this, but this is a history that's not really talked about, okay? We'll talk some about that, and we'll talk about how the history of slavery is being erased from presidential slave plantations. And I was talking to her on the way in to the studio, and she was saying how you will have a presence of them outside of the plantation, in the fields, things like this, but they were actually also living inside the mansion. And when you go inside these presidential mansions that are preserved as historical sites, you wouldn't know that there were enslaved Africans that lived inside the mansion. Okay, so we'll talk to Dr. Talitha LeFlouria as well, who's an associate professor of African American Studies at the Dr. Carter G. Woodson Institute for African American and African Studies at the University of Virginia. Okay, and then also in the second hour we'll be joined by Dr. Not doctor, but she's a hair doctor. Okay, Malaika Tamu Cooper. Malaika Tamu Cooper, if you've been following me, you know this is my 9th year doing radio, so I've had her on my show a number of times. She is the co-organizer of the 18th annual Baltimore Natural Hair Care Expo, and she organizes natural hair care expos across the country. And this is coming up Saturday, March 30th and Sunday, March 31st in Baltimore at the 5th Regiment Armory, I think it is. I'll be there in Baltimore once again speaking at the 18th Annual Baltimore Natural Hair Care Expo. So our listeners in the DMV area, I'll be in Baltimore Saturday, March 30th, Sunday, March 31st, 2019. And visit naturalhaircareexpo.com, naturalhaircareexpo.com for more information. But we'll have her on in the second hour as well, okay? And we'll talk about the Natural Hair Care Expo. We'll talk about the phenomenon of African-American women, more African-American women, more and more adopting natural hairstyles. We'll also talk about the backlash, the attack that we're seeing, especially on African-American girls in schools, wearing natural hair, being sent home because of their natural hair, being ridiculed, etc., okay? And then speaking of natural hair, you remember the story of 16-year-old wrestler Andrew Johnson, right? Well, the referee who forced him to cut his dreadlocks is now suing, alleging emotional distress. Now, the brother, the 16-year-old, he was clearly the victim. But now you got the white referee flipping the script, making himself the victim. Imagine that. Okay, so we'll talk some about that as well. All right. Now, on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the show. We deal with current events and history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter, also go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, okay? And we're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. We're also broadcasting on 910 AM Superstations fan page, also 910 AM Superstation on Facebook, okay? So share those broadcasts as well. You can donate to the African History Network, paypal.me, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. That helps us to keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, etc. It helps me get to Baltimore and get back from Baltimore as well, because I got to pay my way there. Usually when I travel, I have to pay my way also. So that helps with all of that. Or you can go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and click on the yellow donate button. And my DVD lectures are there at our website also. That helps to support the African History Network as well. Okay, so the summary of the Mueller report, and the Mueller report has not been released to the public yet. Okay, so we're going by what Trump-nominated Attorney General William Barr is telling us is in the Mueller report, telling us the conclusions. And in his 4-page summary of the Mueller report, there were only 4 sentences that were direct quotes from the Mueller report also, which is very interesting as well, okay? So we have to keep that in mind also, all right? So let's look at this. You know, Washington Post had a good article about this. I've been reading a few articles, been watching the news coverage on MSNBC. So Washington Post had a good article dealing with this. Also, NBCnews.com. Mueller finds no proof of Trump collusion with Russia. AG Barr says evidence not sufficient to prosecute. AG Barr says evidence not sufficient to prosecute. Quote, while the report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him, end quote, the special counsel said in his report. Now, this is what Mueller is saying in his report, right? But you have Barr who's drawing a conclusion from what Mueller is stating, but Mueller did not yield a conclusion from what we can tell, okay? And Trump is lying, saying that he's totally vindicated. No, he's not. And you have almost 20 investigations, probably about 20 investigations that are taking place. Those are not going to stop either, okay? So if we look quickly here at the article from the Washington Post, Mueller did not find the Trump campaign conspired with Russia, Attorney General says. Now, Special Counsel Robert S. Mueller did not find that Donald Trump or his campaign schemed with Russians to interfere in the 2016 presidential election, according to a summary released Sunday that the president immediately embraced as a, quote, complete exoneration, end quote. No, it's not. Even though Robert S. Mueller reached no conclusion about whether the president obstructed justice. Okay, now I've read the 4-page summary. If you read the article from the Washington Post, we'll post it on the thread of the broadcast. Mueller did not find the Trump campaign conspired with Russia, Attorney General says. There's a link in here where you can read the entire 4-page summary from the Attorney General. Now, after a nearly 2-year investigation, 675 days, Mueller's findings seem to dispel the cloud of conspiracy that has hung over the administration since its inception. But by delivering caveats alongside conclusions, the closing of the Mueller investigation opens the door to fiercer political fights over the president's judgment and power. Okay, now you're still going to have to explain to me why did the Trump campaign have over 100 contacts with Russians? You still have to explain that to me. Okay, because I still don't have an explanation for that. Now, the 4-page summary issued on Sunday, March 24, 2019, by a Trump-nominated Attorney General William P. Barr declared, quote, the special counsel's investigation did not find that the Trump campaign or anyone associated with it conspired or coordinated with Russia in its efforts to influence the 2016 U.S. presidential election, end quote. Now, we do know that the Russians interfered with the election, and the report documents that, okay? And then also very quickly, we're coming up on the break, they have a caveat on a footnote on page 2. In assessing potential conspiracy charges, the special counsel also considered whether members of the Trump campaign, quote unquote, coordinated with Russian election interference activities. The special counsel defined coordination as an, quote, agreement, tacit or express between the Trump campaign and the Russian government or on election interference, end quote. But as Malcolm Nance, counterterrorist expert, as he said on MSNBC this evening, he said there was open collusion. We saw them colluding with the Russians openly. We'll deal with this on the other side of the break. You listen to 910 AM Superstation Future Radio, the African History Network show. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, guys, stand by. Can you turn that down in here, please? Oh, how's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your Facebook page. When we come back, we'll go to the phone lines. I'm also going to go to this clip here from MSNBC and give some background information on what took place tonight. You're going to see more congressional investigations, congressional hearings behind this, as there should be, okay? Because the Republicans were not going to do it. So the Democrats have to do the congressional investigations, okay? All right, how's everybody doing? Okay, so we got Jackie. Let's see here. We got Jackie, and who else we have here? Share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Let's see. How's everybody doing? We got Howard. All right, yeah, share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. 30 seconds. Okay, thanks. All right, y'all can donate to the African History Network, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. Okay, I'm going to go to that first clip. That's Ari Melber. I think Mueller states no exoneration for Trump on obstruction. Trump claims opposite, MSNBC.
Right here?
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, March 24th, 2019, and we are live. All right, so right before the break, we were talking some about the the 4-page summary of the Mueller report that Trump-nominated Attorney General William Barr put out today. Now, we don't know how many pages the Mueller report is, because in this 4-page summary, Attorney General William Barr does not say. Also, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein helped to put together this summary. But, you know, it's very, very interesting here. So, right before the break, I was sharing with you the article from the Washington Post entitled, "Mueller Did Not Find the Trump Campaign Conspired with Russia," Attorney General says. So after a nearly 2-year investigation, Mueller's findings seem to dispel the cloud of conspiracy that has hung over the administration since its inception. But by delivering caveats alongside conclusions, the closing of the Mueller investigation opens the door to fiercer political fights over the president's judgment and power. The 4-page summary issued Sunday by Attorney General William P. Barr declared, quote, "The special counsel's investigation did not find that the Trump campaign or anyone associated with it conspired or coordinated with Russia in its efforts to influence the 2016 U.S. presidential election," end quote. Now, the letter noted that Mueller's probe said no such conspiracy was found, quote, "despite multiple offers from Russia-affiliated individuals to assist the Trump campaign," end quote. Attorney General William P. Barr said. Attorney General William P. Barr said he and Justice Department officials separately determined there was insufficient evidence to make an obstruction accusation against the president, though Special Counsel Mueller was not definitive on that point. So you have Representative Jerry Nadler, who's the chair of the House Judiciary Committee. You have others. You have Representative Coyne out of Tennessee saying, wait a second, it's up to Congress, it's up to the House of Representatives to determine obstruction of justice. It's not up to the Attorney General to determine, the Trump-nominated Attorney General, to determine whether or not there was obstruction of justice based upon Robert Mueller's investigation, because Mueller did not come to that conclusion. There was evidence for and against obstruction of justice. So you have many people asking, well, wait a second, how can Attorney General Barr come to that conclusion? So this evening, there was unprecedented coverage on MSNBC dealing with the release of the 4-page summary. Let's go to this clip. This is Chief Legal Analyst Ari Melber on MSNBC breaking this down. Let's go to this clip. Turn it up in here.
Good evening, I'm Ari Melber, anchoring live from Washington with special coverage of the first experts we've ever seen of the Mueller report. President Trump returned to the White House this hour. He's breaking his weekend-long silence to welcome this new letter from hand-picked Attorney General William Barr, characterizing Special Counsel Bob Mueller's report and asserting the president did not obstruct justice. Now, here are the facts. First, the Mueller probe did end without indictments for election conspiracy or collusion. And Barr's letter today, which we're going to get into, this is the biggest news not only of the night but potentially of the year, it notes that. Second, this Mueller report did not exonerate President Trump of obstruction of open, and that's according to the best presentation of the evidence on behalf of Donald Trump by his own Attorney General Barr. And this is what you need to know tonight. Barr's letter tonight, tries to go much farther than what Mueller found on obstruction. And you're going to hear a lot about this tonight in the coming days. It tries to declare that Donald Trump, who appointed Barr, flatly, as a conclusion, did not obstruct justice. Now, with that factual context in mind, let me give you exactly what we have. These are Barr's highlights. Insufficient evidence to establish collusion. No conclusion about if Trump obstructed justice, according to Mueller. Barr quotes Mueller as stating that the Mueller probe did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in election interference activities, and the evidence does not establish that the president was involved in an underlying crime related to Russian election interference, a.k.a. collusion. Then we read in this new letter, the report leaves unresolved, I repeat, leaves unresolved what Special Counsel Mueller views as difficult issues of law and fact concerning whether President Trump's actions and intent could be viewed as obstruction. And while the report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. That is in this letter. That is now an open question for you, for the Congress, for anyone who understands that after 22 months, Mueller clearly looks pretty fair. A lot of smoke about Russian collusion, but no fire. And yet, while Barr could have stopped there and let you or the Congress or the country deal with this, he goes much further tonight. And this is important. I'm going to bring in my experts on it in a moment. He says that he decided that while Mueller did not try to resolve if Donald Trump obstructed justice, he is going to. Now, that's important because in past probes, whether you agree with the outcomes or not, you may remember in both the Clinton and Nixon cases, these kind of findings about potential obstruction are referred to the Congress for its judgment. But Barr's not referring this to Congress. Instead, tonight, he's doing something very different that I would observe might become quite controversial. Barr stating his own view tonight that he thinks his boss, Donald Trump, did not obstruct justice. And, of course, the president would be seizing on that to declare no collusion, no obstruction. And after a very unusually silent weekend, he broke his silence just now.
It was just announced there was no collusion with Russia, the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. There was no collusion with Russia. There was no obstruction, and none whatsoever. And it was a complete and total exoneration. It's a shame that your president has had to go through this before I even got elected. It began. And it began illegally. And hopefully somebody's going to look at the other side. This was an illegal takedown that failed.
I want to be very clear with you tonight because this really matters. You heard three key things from the president there. One of them is true. Two of them are false. I'll leave it to others to describe whether those false things look like unintentional falsehoods or lies, but they are false. What is true is that, according to the information we have, the lack of indictments at the end of this probe and the excerpts from the DOJ, Mueller did not find a collusion conspiracy. That is a true thing the president just said, and like anyone caught up in a probe, it's understandable that he wants to bang that drum. Then the president said a false thing. He said that this probe results in him being cleared of obstruction. It does not. I just walked you through that. Mr. Barr, Trump's own appointee, can walk you through that because we'll be going you through and quoting his own letter. And then number three, the president said something that has been characteristic throughout this probe. Even after he claims he was cleared, he is still trying to run down the people who've done this investigation, Mr. Mueller and others, and saying that their work was illegal, that they are potentially the criminals. Based on what we know and the evidence we have, that is also flatly false.
Okay, so watch that at MSNBC.com. They have a lot of really good coverage, factual coverage, not Trump TV coverage, right? Like really factual coverage. That clip is from MSNBC. Mueller states no exoneration for Trump on obstruction. Trump claims opposite, okay? And that was MSNBC chief legal analyst Ari Melber, who, unlike Trump, is actually an attorney, actually has a law degree. Unlike Michael Cohen, Ari Melber has not been disbarred, like from the bar, right? Okay, so check that out. Now, this morning on AM Joanne Reed, she had a segment. Mueller report could be released to public eventually. Okay, so that was before the summary came out. Okay, this evening. But I want you to go watch that clip because she has a good graphic in the clip called Special Counsel Investigation. Okay, so you know, Trump says this is illegal. No, it wasn't illegal. It's under the powers of the Department of Justice to have a special counsel. Okay, it wasn't illegal. All right, but when we look at convictions, right, and we look at indictments, so there have been 34 people charged in this special counsel investigation. There were 7 guilty pleas, 1 conviction by trial, Paul Manafort. Okay, that Trump is the first sitting president to have his campaign chairman or campaign manager like be convicted and go to prison. Okay, four people have been jailed or incarcerated. 5 people have been sentenced. Now let's look at this very quickly. Then we'll go to the phone lines. We'll go to Al. Call in numbers 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600. So we have Paul Manafort convicted and pleaded guilty. We have Michael Cohen, former longtime attorney for Donald Trump, who implicated Donald Trump in committing felonies In the report from the Southern District of New York, Trump is listed as individual number 1. Okay, and we also know Trump is implicated in committing campaign finance law violations, which also is a felony. Okay, not only that, Michael Cohen turned over documentation, corroborating documentation, to the House to the House Oversight Committee. Okay, including checks that Trump signed reimbursing Michael Cohen for paying $130,000 in hush money to Stormy Daniels to keep her quiet about an alleged affair that she had with Donald Trump. And this whole thing was conspired, and these payments were about 2 months before the election. And it was not reported in the campaign finance report. That's a campaign finance law violation. That's a felony. So if you go back and look at who broke the story of Stormy Daniels for 910 AM Superstation, that was me on Cliff Russell's show. I was a guest on Cliff Russell's show. We know Cliff is passed. He's an ancestor now. We miss Cliff Russell, right? So Cliff Russell's sitting right in this seat where I am. I'm sitting to the right of him. And we're on break, and I see a story come across my timeline on Facebook from rawstory.com talking about a porno star, adult film star, and Stormy Daniels and Hush money and all this. I said, Cliff, look at this, right? So when we come back from the break, I broke that story for 910 AM Superstation. So we have Michael Cohen pleaded guilty. Michael Flynn, former national security advisor for Donald Trump, spent like 24 days on the job. Remember, Michael, now if you forgot who Michael Flynn is, right? Michael Flynn is the guy who was sitting next to Vladimir Putin on his right at the December 2015 10-year anniversary of Russia Today TV in Russia. So you see the picture, and NBCnews.com has articles about this. When I was on the morning show on this station, I talked about this. People jumped on me because I said, why was Jill Stein sitting at the same table with Vladimir Putin and Attorney General Michael Flynn? And Jill Stein was running for president of the United States. So Vladimir Putin is sitting right here. To the right of him is Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, who then later became Donald Trump's national security advisor, even though President Barack Obama told Donald Trump, don't hire this guy as your national security advisor because I had to fire him. This dumbass went and hired him anyway. Trump went and hired him anyway. And then sitting across from the table is Jill Stein. And I said, wait a second. I said, all this can't be a coincidence. All this can't be a coincidence. Now, if you know anything about Malcolm Nance, counterterrorist expert, and I may have a clip with Malcolm, I'm not sure, but go to MSNBC.com, search for Malcolm Nance. You see him from today breaking this stuff down. He's saying, you know, this stuff doesn't make sense. He said, how do you explain all these connections with the Russians? NANCE. See, Malcolm says that you have to do a whole lot of coordination for a coincidence to happen. He says you have to have a whole lot of coordination for a coincidence to happen. So you have Michael Flynn pleaded guilty. You had George Papadopoulos pleaded guilty, who was a staffer in the Trump campaign. You had Rick Gates, who was a partner of Paul Manafort. He pleaded guilty. You had Alex Van der Zwaan. He pleaded guilty. You had Richard Pinedo, who I don't even remember who he was. He pleaded guilty. Konstantin Kilimnik, Russian. He's indicted. Roger Stone, dirty trickster, who was a campaign advisor for Richard Nixon, longtime friend of Donald Trump. He's indicted. You had 13 Russian nationals indicted. You had 12 Russian military officers indicted as well. So you had 34 people charged, 7 guilty pleas, 1 conviction by trial, Paul Manafort, 4 jailed or incarcerated, 5 sentenced. Now also keep in mind, you have a number of investigations still going on into Trump organizations, things like this. 1, the Trump campaign, investigations are still going on, congressional investigations. 2, Trump Foundation. 3, Trump Organization. 4, Trump Transition Team. 5, Trump Inauguration Committee. $107 million raised. All the money's not accounted for. Where'd the rest of the money go to? You didn't have big name stars performing. What happened to all the money? 6, Trump administration. So there are a number of investigations taking place as well. And there are going to be more coming. They're going to be, I'm telling you right now, there are going to be more coming as well. Okay? And then also, this morning on AM Joy, and we may have time to squeeze in the clip. Maxine Waters was interviewed, and she's talking about potential impeachable offenses: obstructing justice, collusion, violating the Emoluments Clause, Article 1, Section 9 of the U.S. Constitution, pay for play, abuse of power, attacking the press, attacks on investigations, campaign finance law violations, corruption, promise of pardons, and influencing 2016 election. Go check out the segment from MSNBC AM Joy, March 24, 2019, entitled "Mueller Report is Not the End for Dems," Maxine Waters tells Joy Reid. Mueller Report is not the end for Dems, Maxine Waters tells Joy Reid. You can Google that title or go to MSNBC, search for that, watch it in its entirety. Okay, create the bookmarks, right, in Firefox or whatever, or Google Chrome. Create the bookmarks, create the folders so you can archive all this stuff, okay? So you have this evidence. So when people call in to these shows acting a fool, you can hit them with the evidence, okay? Let's go quickly to the phone lines. Let's go to Al, line 1. Hey, Al, welcome to the African History Network show. Thanks for calling. Tell us where you're calling from.
Calling from Detroit. What's going on, Mike?
All right, what's going on, Al?
I'm with you, Mike. We got to document the evidence, but I just want to know, do you think this might work in the behalf of this guy that might get a second term? Because you got a lot of lawyers that run with this guy that would cast a vote. You know, I mean,
well, let's look at this. He can bring it up, but there's going to be a whole lot of evidence to show that he's lying. 1, 2, keep in mind, 2016, he got 2.8 million fewer votes than Hillary Clinton. 3, we saw a blue wave in the 2018 midterm elections, which is going to continue. And most of the Democrats ran on the platform of the issues, not Russia. They ran on the platform of the issues, not Russia. And go ahead.
Well, you know, the reason why I'm saying, I'll be honest, I don't have confidence in certain groups of people in this country because I know they're going to always go with their gut and not going with the best person available. You know, and I know I'm with you. We got the documentation, the evidence. We got to bring it forth. But I ain't got no faith in some of these people. And I know you probably know where I'm coming from.
Some of these people like who? What are you talking about? I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Yeah, I ain't got no faith in these white people. I'm just going.
Oh, okay. Right.
I mean, come on, think about this, Mike. Maybe these guys didn't care about women, but these women still went and voted for him and thought it.
Well, here's the thing. A lot of them. So let's look at this. 53% of white women voted for Trump. 47% of white women didn't vote for Trump. Some of these white women got their tax returns and said, "What is this?" You know. So now the other thing that we have to understand, right, is that you have a momentum taking place. So in 2020, you're going to have 12 million 18-year-olds voting for the first time. 50% of them are going to be non-white. See, their demographic changes. That are taking place that a lot of people are scared of and is not in favor of Republicans. Republicans don't have a growing party. They have a dwindling party. This is why they engage in rampant voter suppression. This is why they're trying to stack the courts. This is why they're trying to engage in packing in the districts, things like this, because they see the numbers are not on their side. So we have to be smarter than that. We have to be smarter than that and deal with the policies and vote for people whose policies are in our best interests. And 9 times out of 10 is not Republicans. And I'm not a Democrat or a Republican, but I study policies. Go ahead, and I have to get to John.
I'm with you. I'm with politics. I don't claim any of these parties.
Right.
I just hope and pray that people got some common sense and realize that this is not going to be. This guy's enriching his family and friends. If people don't realize that by now, I mean, think about this. He also recovered that this man got a ton of money from the Deutsche Bank. They just talked about, I don't know if you saw
Deutsche Bank?
About that.
Right.
Yeah, they talked about how much money he got. See, I'm telling people, he tell you ain't no canoe, but brother, who are you beholden to? Because
right.
A lot of your money is not from this country, so who are you beholden to?
Right, exactly. But not only that, his hotel in Washington D.C. that's actually owned by taxpayers, and he leases it, and you have dignitaries staying there from other countries. You had T-Mobile executives, things like this, staying there because T-Mobile was trying to push through a merger, trying to get it approved by the FTC, and the Department of Justice was intervening, things like this. So this is why, if you saw AM Joy this morning, and they're talking about possible reasons for impeachment, violations of Article 1, Section 9 of the U.S. Constitution, which is the Emolument Clause, is one of them. And so there are a number of different things there. I'm telling you, this is going to continue. There are a number of different things there. Okay, Al, keep listening, man. I got to get to John and then get to Dwayne, okay? All right, let's go to John, line 2. Hey, John, welcome to the African History Network show. Thanks for holding. Tell us where you're calling from.
Well, thank you very much, Hotep. I'm calling from the east side of Detroit.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, man, thank you for breaking it down to this guy you just got through talking to. He the one always calling, don't vote, I don't vote.
Well, no, I don't think Al, that's Al, that's my friend. I don't think Al tells people don't vote. That's my friend Al. I don't think he tells people don't vote.
Al calling the town show, tell me, I don't see why they don't vote.
Yeah, now, John, in all fairness, I have never heard Al say that, and Al has been listening to me even when I was doing national radio. I have never heard Al say don't vote.
You got no way, Joseph. I accept your word.
So it may be a different Al, but this Al right here, I have never heard Al tell people don't vote. I've known Al for years.
Well, okay. Well, we move on from there.
Okay.
You are exactly right. Why you can't see New York lawyers get a hold to that money and all these deals that he done created and all these millions and millions of dollars that's been thrown around coming from different places? I mean,
right.
He ain't seen nothing yet. They said from New York to New Jersey.
Right. So John, follow the congressional hearings, follow the congressional investigations, and then also follow the investigations coming out of the Southern District of New York, the U.S. Attorney's Office as well, because a lot of legal scholars are saying that those investigations coming out of the Southern District of New York are a bigger threat than the Mueller investigation. They've been saying this even before this report came out. They were saying this.
And Mueller handed over to the New York district attorney and so forth. A lot of stuff he handed over to
some things he handed off to Southern District of New York. Right, exactly.
Exactly. So I just want to say stay tuned and watch these, this Maxine Waters said that he was going to take his taxes. He got to pay taxes.
Well, now, Maxine Waters is the chair of the Finance Committee. A few months ago on MSNBC, she said it would not be the Finance Committee that would get his taxes. It would be the Ways and Means Committee that would get his taxes, not the Finance Committee. Okay, so but right. Okay, John. Okay, keep listening. Okay, all right. I want to go to this second clip, and then we'll go back to the phone lines. 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. Now, this is Representative Jerry Nadler. He did a press conference this evening after the William Barr 4-page summary of the Mueller report was released. Now, Representative Jerry Nadler is the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. Remember, it's the House Judiciary Committee that debates articles of impeachment, and they are the ones who actually drop the articles of impeachment, and they will vote, and then they vote within the committee. Then if it passes the committee, then it goes to the general body of the House of Representatives to vote to impeach the president. If it passes the House of Representatives, and you need 218 votes to for an impeachment for the impeachment bill or what have you to pass the House of Representatives, then it goes to the U.S. Senate for the actual trial. So impeachment does not mean removal from office. Impeachment does not mean removal from office. Okay? Now, that is one of the outcomes of impeachment. And you need 67 votes in the U.S. Senate to impeach a president. Okay? 67 votes. And Democrats have, I think it's 46 now in the U.S. Senate. Okay? They are a minority in the U.S. Senate. Okay, so you need 2/3 majority vote in the U.S. Senate to impeach a president. And keep in mind, the U.S. senators are the jurors. The U.S. senators are the jurors. That's where the hearing takes place. So impeachment does not necessarily mean removal from office. Read Article 2, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution also. Okay, let's go to this clip. Representative Jerry Nadler.
I received a 4-page letter from Attorney General Barr outlining his summary of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report while making a few questionable legal arguments of his own. I take from this letter 3 points. First, President Trump is wrong. This report does not amount to a so-called total exoneration. Special Counsel Mueller was clear that his report, quote, does not exonerate, close quote, the president. The special counsel spent 22 months uncovering evidence of obstruction and other misconduct. Attorney General Barr, who auditioned for his role with an open memorandum suggesting that the obstruction investigation was unconscionable and that it was almost impossible for any president to commit obstruction of justice since he is the head of the executive branch, made a decision about that evidence in under 48 hours. His conclusions raise more questions than they answer, given the fact that Mueller uncovered evidence that, in his own words, does not exonerate the president. It is unconscionable that President Trump would try to spin the special counsel's findings as if his conduct was remotely acceptable. Second, given these questions, it is imperative that the Attorney General release the full report and the underlying evidence. The entire unfiltered report, as well as the evidence underlying that report, must be made available to Congress and to the American people. As much information as can be made public should be made public without delay. I intend to fight for that transparency. We will ask the Attorney General to testify before the House Judiciary Committee. We will demand the release of the full report. The American people are entitled to a full accounting of the President's misconduct referenced by the special counsel. Third, the Attorney General's comments make it clear that Congress must step in to get the truth and provide full transparency to the American people. The President has not been exonerated by the special counsel, yet the Attorney General has decided not to go further or apparently to share those findings with the public. We cannot simply rely on what may be a hasty, partisan interpretation of the facts. Earlier this month, the House passed a resolution calling for full and complete release of the special counsel's report by a vote of 420 to nothing. We now call on the Attorney General to honor that request, to release the report and the underlying evidence, and to appear before the Judiciary Committee to answer our questions without delay. That's the statement. Thank you. Take a few questions. I can't hear you.
Sorry. Okay, pause it right there. Pause it there. Pause it. Okay. Okay, we're going to pause it there. We'll try to squeeze that in on the other side of the break because we're running out of time. But that is from MSNBC. That was just a few hours ago. MSNBC.com. The name of that clip, Nadler, N-A-D-L-E-R. We can't rely on what may be a hasty, partisan interpretation of facts. Okay, that's at MSNBC.com, March 24, 2019. Watch that entire video. Let's go to the phone lines quickly. Let's go to Dwayne. Hey, Dwayne, thanks for holding. Welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from.
Hi, this is Dwayne from the northeast side.
Northeast side of Detroit. Okay, I'm all right, man. Go ahead. What's going on?
You always talk about black folks and poor folks play checkers and don't play chess. This is an example of a chess game.
Mm-hmm. Grandmaster level chess.
How can you sit up there and line yourself with Boy Scouts and they go to jail and nothing happened and you didn't do nothing? Even you got to be the most incompetent administrator in history. Mm-hmm. If that's the only other excuse, if he's not guilty, he's at least guilty of that.
Well, now keep in mind, see, many legal scholars said that Robert Mueller would follow the Department of Justice guidelines that a sitting president could not be indicted, okay, because Mueller is a by-the-book prosecutor, All right. Now, that is not settled law, however. Okay, that's not settled law. There's nothing in the U.S. Constitution.
Mike,
Huh?
we always talk about politics. Let's talk common sense. That politics is just a game, and that law is a game. Let's use common sense. I sit up there. I got all these. I'm sitting up there constantly. I can never criticize Russia. I fired the man, the FBI director. I'm constantly meeting with people. Come on, that's why that law game, all that stuff is game. That's games.
Well, let's keep in mind. Let's keep in mind. Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, Dwayne. Did you read the 4-page summary from William Barr?
I don't have to read the summary.
Okay. So what we have to understand is what we have to understand is slow down. I'm gonna let you finish. Slow down. So what we have to understand is slow down. Oh, just a second. Slow down. So what we have to understand is, one, the Mueller report has not been released to the public. Two, this is Attorney General William Barr, who had Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein help him put together this 4-page summary. But we're not hearing from Special Counsel Robert Mueller about the report. When you actually read the 4-page summary, and I've read it before I came on the air, there are only four direct quotes from Mueller's report, and it's only like one sentence each. Okay, so this is the Trump-nominated Attorney General giving his summary of Mueller's report, and he's going beyond what Mueller said when it came to obstruction of justice. You have Barr, who's basically exonerating Trump when it comes to obstruction of justice, but Robert Mueller did not exonerate him when it came to obstruction of justice. Go ahead, and then we're coming up on the break. We got about a minute before the break.
Mike, you're talking legal. Okay, see that's the game. That's the game. Let me make this point. I'm going to investigate my boss. I never like to talk to assistants. The assistants are going to defend the people. That's illogical. See, that's not common sense. Congress should have just went on and investigated totally independently in the first place. See, it's too much games and waste of time. That's why I understand your point about.
When you say Congress should have investigated, keep in mind that for the first 2 years, Republicans were in control of both branches of Congress.
That's a good point. That's an excellent point.
And they were soft shoeing this. Okay, so the reason why you have these congressional investigations launched now is because Democrats are in control of the House of Representatives. This is why you have these congressional. This is why you have these congressional hearings and investigations, and they're going to be more coming. But also keep in mind that when Democrats took control of the House of Representatives January 3rd during a 35-day government shutdown, which slowed down a lot of what they were doing also. Okay,
Mike, you're making a lot of excellent points, and you're talking legally, intellectually. But the problem is legally and intellectually. That's a place. We need that. But there's common sense and logic, and this game plan and wasting time. See, we don't have time. We don't know how much time we got. Too much time is wasted. That's why I hate to say talk with frustration.
Okay.
But to me, it's just too many games. Life is too short. I just see too many political, economic games. That's why.
Well, this is Dwayne, and I got to go to break because I got a guest coming up at the top of the hour. But this is an example of how elections have consequences.
That's true.
This is an example of how elections happen. This is what I told people during 2016, because the president nominates not just Supreme Court justices, not just federal court justices, but the president also nominates the Attorney General. The attorney, and if you go to DOJ.gov, no, justice.gov. Justice.gov is the official website of the Department of Justice. Look at the Department of Justice hierarchy chart, and look at all of the legal departments and entities and agencies that report to the Attorney General. Okay, Dwayne, we're up against a break. I got to run, man. Thanks for calling. Keep listening. Okay, you listen to 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. Michael Imhotep. When we come back, we'll be joined by Malaika Tamu Cooper. We'll talk about the Baltimore Natural Hair Care Expo. We'll also be joined by Dr. Talitha LeFlouria, and we'll deal with black women in the convict leasing system, and we'll talk about erasing slavery on the plantations. 910 AM Superstation, Future Radio. Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Hey, y'all need to hush.
Okay, guys, stand by. We got a guest coming up. Is she on the phone?
No.
Okay. Malaika. All right. Here, I'm going to have you call her. I think she's at the shop. Give me a piece of paper. You had a post-it note or something over there? All right. Okay, we got her. 10 o'clock. Stand by, guys. We'll be back in a couple of minutes here. All right, yeah, call Malaika because I'm bringing her on next. Bringing her on right at about 10 o'clock when we come back from the break. All right, stand by, guys. How's everybody doing? We'll post these links here on the thread of the broadcast because I want you to go watch these videos yourself. Research this yourself. Proper documentation ends all conversation. You don't have to believe a word that I say. Go research this for yourself. All right, who we have here? We've got Tony, Timothy. Is this Tony from Detroit that calls into my show? Is this that Tony? All right, who else we have here? Let me know if it goes to voicemail. Okay.
Hello, is this Miss Cooper? Hi, how you doing? My name is Mike Brown with 910 AM Superstation. I'm alright. I was calling, letting you know that we're going to be on air for the Michael Imhotep show. Yeah, I was just calling to let you know we're about to go live in a few minutes, okay? Yes, you can stay on this number. Okay, no problem. Alright, I got her. We got 30 seconds.
Okay, that's fine.
Cool.
All right, guys, we'll be back in about 20 seconds.
Ten seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation of Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, March 24th, 2019. We are in our second hour. That first hour went by very, very quickly. We were talking about Mueller report shows Trump campaign did not conspire with Russian government, but is not exonerated on obstruction of justice, even though Trump is lying, saying that it did exonerate him. No, that's not what it said. But what did you expect from a person who's told over 9,000 false and misleading statements during their administration? Okay, so I see now I'm going to have to do a broadcast like Monday or Tuesday, a Facebook Live broadcast to go deeper into this information because I didn't have enough time in the first hour. Follow us on our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. I did a broadcast on, was that March 20th, Wednesday I think it was, March 20th, dealing with American schools can't figure out how to teach children slavery with recent instances of mock slave auctions and a monopoly-like role-playing game. I did an hour and a half of broadcasts, and it's on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network as well. All right, so on the line we're joined by Malaika Tamu Cooper, who is the number one, she is a natural hair doctor, if you could say that, and also she is the co-organizer of the 18th annual Baltimore Natural Hair Care Expo taking place at the 5th Regiment Armory, Saturday, March 30th, Sunday, March 31st. How you doing tonight, Malaika?
I'm well. How are you?
Oh, I'm all right. It's good to always talk to you. You know, it's that time of the year again, so it's time for me to be back in Baltimore for 2 days, coming up Saturday, March 30th, Sunday, March 31st. So we know that, you know, you and your group put on some fantastic natural hair care expos in different cities across the country, and I think probably Baltimore is probably the largest, or at least one of the largest, if it's not the largest. So let people know, what can they expect at this expo, and why is there a need for a natural hair care expo also?
Well, hair is just one part of it. I use hair as a catalyst to pull us all together, especially the sisters, because the one thing we have in common is the fact that we like to keep our hair really, 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 really nice and healthy. So with that being said, once I get you all into an arena, when I get you there, I can't just tell you about hair. That would be very shallow. I want to get you there. I want to educate you on your holistic living, holistic eating. I want to educate you on everything from finances to budgeting to I have a clinical psychologist there, teaches women to be doing a class on how to be the content woman. I also have a class this year on colorism. You know, I have a sister girl who, her name is Tula Love. She'll be there. Okay. And she'll be teaching about, excuse me, the fact that her mother is white and her father is black. And the class is called Colorism, and it's about how her father never wanted her to do anything that was culturally black. Her father even married a white man, and when she wanted to learn how to braid her hair because her hair didn't turn out to be.
Malaika, you said her father. You said her father married a white man.
I mean, a white woman. I'm
sorry.
Oh,
okay. I'm just checking.
Okay, I will change that. Let me clear. Her father married a white woman. Okay. Hoping that his children would turn out to be white. Okay. But his children did turn out to be very fair-skinned, but with absolutely kinky hair. Okay. So all of the effects of him having a problem with the fact that he was a black man, you know, how it affected his children. So there's a class on colorism. Okay. So once we get you there, it's not just about hair. Of course, we have classes on hair. We have you coming.
Yes.
About the
great black women in history. The mothers of civilization, and then I'm going to do great black women in history, and I'm going to do the role of black women in the film Black Panther also, all in the same workshop.
Exactly. Now you understand why it's just not about hair. Right. Hair is just what we use to get you together, to make you get in here. And I don't want you to leave the same way you came. Right. I want you to be educated and well-rounded. And so there is a need for this, the Baltimore Natural Hair Care Expo, to be here, because this is the kind of stuff they refuse to teach you in school, especially now that Trump is in office. You will never get this kind of education from anybody else, and it is our responsibility to educate ourselves.
Right, exactly. Okay, so this is taking place Saturday, March 30th, Sunday, March 31st at the 5th Armory Regiment.
5th Regiment Armory.
5th Regiment Armory, yes, in Baltimore. Go ahead and give them information.
Maryland. Okay, so the best thing for you to do, and I want to also let people know, is that we have plenty of vending space left. Okay. But the best thing for you to do is to go online to www.naturalhaircareexpo.com. Naturalhaircareexpo.com. It is the 18th annual Baltimore Natural Hair Care Expo, March 30th and 31st from 11 to 7 both days. It's $20 admission to get in, and $20 is really nominal for the amount of education, the 125 vendors, the 36 classes. This year's special guest is Kimberly Elise. I don't know if you remember her from Set It Off, from Diary of a Mad Black Woman. Well, she has a new line of natural hair care products that she's putting out. She has a do-it-yourself home remedies that she's putting out there, and she's given a lecture. We also have Michael McMillan. He is one of the second largest Facebook pages on. It's called The Beard Game Matters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, brothers are now wearing their facial hair. They're letting it grow out. And I say to everybody now, the beard is the new six-pack. brothers are wearing their beards, and sisters are loving them. But the fact that men were never taught to groom their beards with, you know, soften and condition it, brush it, make it look nice and neat and presentable. So with that being said, we have the brother Mike McMillan from The Beard Game Matters, and I invite you to join his Facebook page.
Now, what's the name of the Facebook page?
The Beard Game Matters.
Okay, The Beard Game, Game Matters. Okay,
Matters,
on Facebook. Yes. Okay, go ahead.
And then my final guest, who I am so excited to have, because there are a lot of brothers who are out here who are barbers, who are entrepreneurs, and you can only cut so many heads in a day. And so they always reach a ceiling with their money because it's just physically impossible to make millions just being your barber.
Right.
So Morano Hodge, you can look him up at Morano, M-O-R-O-N-O 1 on Twitter. He is coming, and he is teaching you how to be a millionaire, how to make $100,000 just being a barber, with how to do skin treatments and clearing up of the pimples and the ingrown hairs and things like that. So he's really, really good. And then my final class is a sister. She's a millionaire. Her company is called Diva by Cindy. She's teaching you, those sisters who have their own small products and things. She's showing you how to get them in Amazon. She's showing you how to get them in Target. She's showing you how to get it in Walmart. She's trying to show you how to take your retail game to another level. So this is just not about hair. This is about business. This is about finance. We have business coaches there. We have clinical psychologists, because there are a lot of sisters out here right now who don't have somebody to talk to, who may need serious mental help, and they don't know where to go or who to trust. That mental illness, it runs rampant in our communities, and it's just going untreated. And we need to have somebody to talk to. So we have a clinical psychologist for that. We have so much going on at the Baltimore Natural Hair Care Expo. Our next step after this will be Salisbury, Maryland. Then we're going to be going to Cleveland, Ohio. Then we'll be going to Kearney, New Jersey.
Right, Cleveland, yeah.
Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Kearney, New Jersey, Pittsburgh, Edmonton, Canada, Gastonia, North Carolina. This is a traveling show.
Right.
This is an educational piece. This is much needed in the African-American community.
Now, give people the website.
www.naturalhaircareexpo.com, or you can call my salon, Dreads and Heads, at 410-298-0660.
Okay, give them the number again.
410-298-0660.
Okay, and then you do this across the country, and then I should probably be in Cleveland also, because Cleveland is only a 2.5-hour drive from Detroit.
Right.
So I should
remember
be
you came to our Cleveland show before.
Yep.
And we blew the whole hotel out. There were no more. I mean, people couldn't even get around. We had so many people.
Right.
At that expo.
It's steadily growing.
We had to have you bend in the hallway.
Yeah, you did. You did. Yep, you did.
Yes.
So
it was just an explosion.
Right, absolutely. So I will be there again this year. I'll be a vendor both days, so people come visit my vendor booth.
There's only one day, May 5th, in Cleveland.
No. I'm talking about Baltimore. Okay, I'll be there both.
Yeah,
I'll be there both days. People come visit my vendor booth, and I'll be doing my workshop both days. So I'll have the information will be on naturalhaircareexpo.com about the workshops and the schedules, and I'll have it on my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com as well. So let me ask you this question, because we have a few more minutes here left in the interview. So recently, and even last year, but especially the last couple of years, we hear these disturbing stories about African American girls in school who are being chastised for wearing their natural hair. They may be suspended, sent home, ridiculed. How do you and the people who have these workshops, right? These very informative workshops, how do we deal with all of that?
Well, at our show, we're going to have a class called the Logistics of Natural Hair Care.
Okay.
We have to start changing the narrative. We have to shift the paradigm. We have to do something to combat this that's going on. And sadly enough, it's also by our own people doing it to us too.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's true.
You know, we got to change the negative connotations for the word nappy.
Yeah.
I love the word nappy. Yes, my hair is nappy. Yes, it's the most perfect coil pattern ever.
Mm-hmm.
We have to start educating our sisters on the fact that there's no such thing as good hair or bad hair. All hair that's clean and healthy is good hair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You know, there are 4 types of hair. It's either kinky, curly, wavy, or straight.
Okay.
So hair doesn't know a color. It's either kinky, curly, wavy, or straight. But we give kinky hair a bad name. But kinky hair is really the most delicate hair. It's the most softest hair. It is hair and not what we would consider fur. You know, so there are some things we have to just begin to change the narrative. We have to start teaching our children right now that their hair is beautiful in its natural state.
Right.
We have to start also going into the school systems and having them have sensitivity training.
Yes.
You know,
absolutely.
Everybody is not going to look. You want diversity. You want diversity in your lifestyle, meaning you want us to adopt the theory of homosexuality.
Mm-hmm.
You want us to adopt everything else.
Mm-hmm.
You want us to adopt the fact that interracial marriages. You want us to do all those things, but you're not meeting us halfway on the hair thing.
Right. Right.
And the hair thing is, of course, I may want to cover it. I may want to wear it out. I may want to wear it in an afro.
Mm-hmm.
I may want to wear it with first. I may want to wear it with braids. But you're going to stop me from doing a job, from being on TV, from all kinds of things, because I want to wear my hair in its natural state. So now, what kind of psyche is that I've never seen my hair stop me from typing, filing, speaking correctly. None of those things.
Right.
But you have a problem, and I understand in America that image is everything.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that.
Right.
But, you know, I don't look like you. You don't look like me. So why are you chastising me for not looking like you?
So let me ask you this.
What I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. So let me ask you this question because we have about 4 minutes left here. When you, in the various workshops that are going to be taking place Saturday, March 30th, Sunday, March 31st, 2019 at the 18th Annual Baltimore Natural Hair Care Expo, are there workshops also that show African American women how to wear different natural hairstyles in their professional career? So the reason why I say that is because even though certain hairstyles may be acceptable to us, we also have to face reality. Some of our sisters work in corporate America, and they want to wear natural hairstyles, right? And they don't want to get fired. Okay, so do you have? Go ahead.
This is what I tell them. I say, pull out your employee handbook.
Okay.
The employee handbook will say, because they always have a chapter on grooming.
Okay.
The employee handbook will say, neat, well-groomed, no faddish colors, not touching the collar,
mm-hmm.
you know, those type of things. So if you do your hair and you choose to make it crimson red, then you know you're going to have problems.
Right. Okay. Right.
You know, that's understood. You're
right.
not going to have problems. If you got one side purple and and then you're going to put on a business suit. Now, how crazy is that?
Right. Okay.
So we understand that image is everything.
Mm-hmm.
So at this show, we're having a 60 woman, 60 females, and 12 males natural hair show, runway show.
Runway show. Okay.
Runway show.
Wow.
So, of course, you know, 60 diverse women, different DNA from all over the place,
mm-hmm.
are going to be there. I don't care if you are size 32 or size 0. We're having a real woman show and a real male show showing how you can wear your hair in its natural state, not a whole bunch of faddish colors.
Right.
We'll have some women in business suits. We'll have some women in nightclubs.
After five attire. After five attire. Right.
After five, exactly.
Right.
So and we have them all shapes, sizes, and colors. And the beautiful thing is, we will be parading. I call it the parade of textures.
Mm-hmm.
We even have a white girl coming because her hair is bone straight.
Okay.
You know, and what we're doing is we're showing the diversity and the professionalism as well as the creativity of our hair.
Absolutely. And the other great thing about it is that you're going to have a lot of African-American vendors there that have all different types of products, hair products, natural hair products, and even products that are not for juices, even the cultural enrichment. You'll have a lot of cultural enrichment products, but even for African-American men who don't have a beard, they can still attend this as well. Tell them why.
Well, there are two types of tickets.
Okay.
We're going to be making sure that we have a regular general admission ticket, but if you get a VIP ticket, you get a twist-out kit, a product for your natural hair, and you also get, for the men, they get a men's kit.
Okay.
We want to put everybody on the same page in the same book, and I'm going to tell you why. In the cosmetology books, there are no standards for natural hair. They want everybody to put sodium lauryl sulfate or sodium hydroxide in their hair, manipulate the curl pattern to make everybody look exactly the same. You will not find a track, weave, or glue in this show.
Wow.
And they want everybody to kind of emulate a Eurocentric standard of beauty.
Exactly.
That's not what we are.
Exactly.
We're here to dispel those myths. We're here to change the game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this has turned into, all of those other companies, Revlon and all of those other companies, are missing money. You know why?
Why?
Because this generation of millennials are now going back to the natural.
Absolutely. Okay.
And they're mixing products in their own house.
Yes.
So this is what you need to. This is why you need to attend, because we've taken the money out of their pockets and put it back into our own community.
So once again, and we're out of time here, once again, visit naturalhaircareexpo.com, naturalhaircareexpo.com for more information and to purchase tickets for the 18th Annual Baltimore Natural Hair Care Expo, taking place Saturday, March 30th, Sunday, March 31st, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. both days at the 5th Regiment Armory. The 5th Regiment Armory, located at 219 29th Division Street, Baltimore, Maryland. I'll be there both days. Visit my vendor table. I have my DVD lectures there. I'll be doing workshops both days also. And this week, sometime I know the workshops will be on the website. We'll also have the information on my website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, Malaika, well, it's good talking to you, and I will see you this weekend, okay?
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. No problem. Take care. All right, everybody, and those in the DMV area, hey, if you want me to do a presentation for a group or organization while I'm in town, email me at customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You listen to 910 AM Superstation of Future Radio. Michael Imhotep will be back with Dr. Talitha LeFlouria talking about chained and silenced black women in convict labor in the New South. 910 AM Superstation of Future Radio. We'll be back in a few minutes.
The day you lose.
Okay, guys, stand by. All right, let me see. Okay, so we have to call her. All right.
I got her number.
Oh, you got a number?
Give it to me.
Dr. Talitha?
Yeah.
Okay.
Want me to call her now?
Yeah, call her now. Oh, no, I'm bringing her on at 10:30. So at about 10:25, we'll call her.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm going to bring her on at 10:30. Okay, you got a few minutes. How's everybody doing? Okay, so what I'll do is I'll go to the clip of Maxine Waters on AM Joy.
Okay.
We'll play that clip because we'll have a few minutes. How's everybody doing? Stand by. Share this broadcast on your Facebook page, everybody. Let's see. We've got Lewis, got Jackie, Ina, Tony Clark. How you doing, Tony?
1 minute.
Okay. Got Eric. Who else we have? Jackie. We wear naturals. they wear naturals. If we wear Jerry curls, they wear Jerry curls. If we wear braids, they wear braids. All right. Tony Clark, Stacy. All right.
20 seconds.
I'm glad they had natural hairstyles in the movie Us. Okay. You haven't seen Us yet. I'm not a big horror movie fan.
5, 4, 1.
Welcome back to 910 AM Superstation of Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, March 24th, 2019. We just finished talking to Malaika Tamu Cooper about the 18th annual Baltimore Natural Hair Care Expo. So I'll be there Saturday, March 30th, Sunday, March 31st. 2019. So those in the DMV area, look out for me there. Okay, so in the first hour, we talked about the Attorney General William Barr releasing his 4-page summary of the Mueller report. We have not, the Mueller report has not been released to the public yet. It should be released so we can actually read it for ourselves. Mueller report shows Trump campaign did not conspire with Russian government, but is not exonerated on obstruction of justice. And I'll let you hear from Representative Nadler, Jerry Nadler, who's the chair of the House Judiciary Committee. Now, this morning on AM Joanne Reed's show on MSNBC, she interviewed the chair of the Finance Committee, Representative Maxine Waters. And this was before the 4-page summary from William Barr was released, but the Mueller report has not been released yet, okay? So let's go to this clip here.
Do you believe Donald Trump should be impeached?
Well, I think that they would come. I think that they would come. I don't think he's legitimate. I said it back at the end of the election, and I still believe that today.
That he is not a legitimate president?
He's not a legitimate president.
As the country waits to see what Attorney General William Barr may reveal today about the contents of the Mueller report, congressional Democrats are keeping the pressure on. The chairs of 6 House committees, including my next guest, have issued a statement demanding that Barr make Mueller's report public immediately. And joining me now for your moment of Maxine, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, chair of the Financial Services Committee of the House of Representatives. Thank you for being here, Congresswoman.
You're so welcome. Delighted to be here always.
Thank you very much. Let's start with what William Barr, the current Attorney General, has said in his letter on Friday. He said that I remain committed to as much transparency as possible, and I will keep you informed as to the status of my review. That was his letter to Congress. Is that enough?
Not good enough. We want full disclosure. The American people deserve to know what our special counsel has discovered in this investigation over 22 months. We don't want to hear anything about Barr using his discretion to decide what we should see, what we should know and not know. We want the full report. We deserve it, and we're going to keep the pressure on to say to him, we want transparency. We want to know exactly what's in that report. And we want all of the underlying documents to go along with it.
And if Mr. Barr, Attorney General Barr, does not release the full report to Congress, do you believe that the report and or Mr. Barr should be subpoenaed?
Oh, I absolutely do believe that. We have to come to that decision. The 5 of us who are chairing committees that have oversight responsibility, and we're all involved cooperating with each other, really would like to have full disclosure. We want the real report. However, I certainly agree, and I think they will too, that if he does not release it, that it should be subpoenaed.
And you have Donald Trump's supporters, including his former UN ambassador Nikki Haley, out there tweeting and saying, essentially presuming that the president has been exonerated by the report, and in Nikki Haley's case, saying that it's been completed and everyone should just move on. It's a curious position to take since we don't know what's in the report, but do you see colleagues on the other side of the aisle sort of declaring this whole thing at an end and wanting no further inquiry? I know that the House has something like 80 subpoenas still out.
Absolutely. Well, I want to tell you that this president has a way of trying to get into people's heads and indoctrinate them. He's been saying no collusion, no collusion, no collusion over and over again for a long time now. And he's going to try and conclude that this report is proving that there's no collusion. And you have a lot of his sycophants who will, take the nod from him and they'll say the same thing. But we cannot allow them to get away with this. He does this all the time. This is not the end of anything. This is it's the end of the report and the investigation by Mueller. But those of us who chair these committees have a responsibility to continue with our oversight, because there's so much that needs to be, taken a look at this point. And so it's not the end of everything.
Yeah, and there are a lot of folks on the other side of the aisle, Republicans, who believe that Democrats in Congress, yourself included, just want this report as a pretext to impeach Donald Trump. You have said for quite some time you think he should be impeached. What would you say to those who say you guys want this report so that you can just use it as a pretext for impeachment?
Well, I have said over and over again that this president has defined himself, and he has committed, not only obstruction of justice right before our very eyes, but he has said and done things that could lead you to the conclusion that there has been collusion, lead us to the point where we understand that there has been collusion.
And so let's just put up a few of the potential impeachable offenses that, you and we have discussed on this show. You've discussed them on this show often. There is the potential of obstruction of justice, something that was not, we don't know if that's in the Mueller report at all, things like collusion with a foreign power, with Russia, abuse of power, paid for play, attacks and investigation, etc. There's a whole long list of these things that are concerning to a majority of the American people. Among those things, what if one of those were to be in the Mueller report that to you would be the most would cause you to believe the most that there should be an impeachment immediately of this president, what would it be? What would be the one thing that you think he's done?
Well, I think there are some very specific things, like Manafort given to Kalimnik, polling data. Why would he be giving polling data from the elections to this Russian? Why would he be, literally talking about, well, first of all, we have all of these contacts that we have been documented with those members of the group of people who are around this president having met with or talked with Russians, and they lie about it. Why would they do that? I think when you take a look at the lies, the meetings, the big meeting that took place at Trump Towers, when you take a look at the polling data that has been given to Russians, when you take a look at the fact that Flynn called someone in Russia, I think during the inauguration, and told him, that the sanctions were going to be lifted and they could go on with their big energy project. There's so much that's there that shows collusion, as far as I'm concerned, and obstruction of justice. And I believe that we're well past the time when we should have considered impeachment of this president.
And, on the other side of that argument, you have Jim Comey, who was, of course, the person fired, who he was head of the FBI. His firing and Donald Trump's admission of why he fired him to our very own NBC's own Lester Holt, which he said he fired him because of Russia. Comey has come out with an op-ed. It was published in the New York Times on Thursday, in which he said that he hopes Donald Trump is not impeached and removed from office because, in his view, a significant portion of this country would view that as a coup. Your thoughts?
Well, I cannot talk about not impeaching this president because there are those who don't like it or who will consider it some kind of way that we're saying that we didn't like the fact that he didn't get elected and that he got elected and Hillary Clinton did not get elected. We can't consider that. We must consider the information that's before us. We must see what's in this report, and we must also understand what information is in this report that would lead us to do further investigation and further work in our committees.
Congresswoman Maxine Waters, always great to see you. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to next week, and I'm waiting for this report.
Yep.
This is very important, and we want the whole thing.
All right. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. And coming up,
Okay, so that's from this morning, AM Joanne Reed, MSNBC. That clip is entitled, Mueller Report is Not the End for Dems. Maxine Waters tells Joy Reid. Go watch that again. MSNBC.com. Archive that. Earlier in the broadcast, and we'll go to Dr. LeFlouria in just a minute, so hold the line. Early in the first hour, I talked about Trump's team had over 100 contacts with Russian-linked officials, report shows. That's from news.yahoo.com. News.yahoo.com. We'll post a link on the thread of the broadcast. We'll also post that on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. That was picked up from USA Today. That's from January 9th, 2019. January 9th, 2019. Members of Donald Trump's campaign and transition team had more than 100 contacts with Russian-linked officials, according to a new report. The milestone illustrates the deep ties between members of Trump's circle and the Kremlin. The findings, tracked by the Center for American Progress and its Moscow project, could come amid reports that Special Counsel Robert Mueller is nearing the conclusion of the 2-year investigation into Russia collusion. Okay, so this is prior to the report released today by Attorney General William Barr. Quote, this wasn't just one email or call or one this or that, said Talitha Dessel, D-E-S-S-E-L, a research analyst for the left-leaning organization. Quote, over 100 contacts is really significant because you don't just have 100 contacts with a foreign power if there's nothing going on. End quote. Also, this is a foreign adversary to the U.S. The number of contacts was raised to 101 in the second week of January 2019 after it was reported that Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, who's in prison, and Rick Gates, who we talked about, was Rick Gates was indicted. And let's see, what's the status of Gates? Rick Gates pleaded guilty. Okay, Rick Gates pleaded guilty. He was a partner of Paul Manafort. All right, Paul Manafort and Rick Gates, a former campaign aide, shared polling data with Paul Manafort's former Russian business partner, Konstantin Kilimnik. And this is somebody, if I remember correctly, Paul Manafort owed Konstantin Kilimnik like millions of dollars. Okay, so Talitha Dessel noted the group's list of contacts is on the quote-unquote conservative end, and the quote very minimum amount of contacts, end quote, between Russian-linked officials and those within the Trump campaign and transition. Read this in its entirety, okay? Because you're going to see more investigations coming from the House of Representatives. Trump's team had over 100 contacts with Russian-linked officials, report shows. Okay, so on the line, we're joined by Dr. Talitha LeFlouria. She is the Lisa Smith Discovery Associate Professor in African and African American Studies at the University of Virginia and an Andrew Carnegie Fellow. She is a scholar of African American history, specializing in mass incarceration, modern slavery, and black women in America. She is the author of Chained in Silence, Black Women and Convict Labor in the New South. This book, and this book right here, that I heard Cliff Russell interview her about 3 years ago or so. And I heard the interview, so I ordered the book right away. And we all miss Cliff Russell. We know Cliff has passed on. He's an ancestor now. But I first found out about her on Cliff Russell's show. Okay, so now this book received several national awards, including the Darlene Clark Hine Award from the Organization of American Historians in 2016, the Philip Taft Labor History Award from the Cornell University of Industrial and Labor Relations and Labor and Working Class History Association 2016, as well as some other awards also. Now, she has also received the Ida B. Wells Tribute Award from the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, where she will be speaking on Tuesday, March 26, 2019, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., talking about when slavery is erased from plantations. We want to welcome to the African History Network show Dr. Talitha LeFlouria. How you doing tonight, sister?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
All right, no problem. Thanks for coming on. Well, I'm looking forward to your lecture on Tuesday, and I'm very familiar with your work, familiar with your book as well. I ordered your book. So, I mean, this is the first book I've seen of its type dealing with black women and convict labor in the New South. So tell us a little bit about this topic, and then we'll get into when slavery is erased from plantations.
Okay, awesome. Sure. So, you know, as we know, oftentimes mass incarceration is an epidemic that is gendered, you know, male and black.
Exactly.
Oftentimes the experiences of women and their experiences of mass incarceration in the contemporary and in the past are overlooked or ignored.
Mm-hmm.
So about maybe 12, 13 years ago, while I was a PhD student, I started to do research on convict leasing. And what I learned through that process was that, southern states were able, southern states took it upon themselves to lease entire prison populations to private industrialists, to these private contractors to work in factories and to build railroads and to build bridges and to work in brickyards and mines. And, they basically worked these people to death, and it was essentially slavery by another name. But what I did not know was that women were also forced to work in the same system. So I wrote this book. It was born out of about 12 years of research, and what it shows is that black women were essentially re-enslaved through the penal system after emancipation in the southern states, particularly in the state of Georgia, where they were forced to do everything from, build railroads, to work in brickyards, to work as lumberjacks, to work as blacksmiths, gristmill operators. And to also, they were oftentimes victims of sexual violence. They became pregnant in these prison camps. Their babies were oftentimes killed. And, they were not seen as really, not just women, but they were really dehumanized. And the only time that their womanhood was acknowledged was when they were, victims of rape. So this just, in many ways, shows just how this epidemic of mass incarceration and its impact on women, is a continuation of a system that has been with us for a long time. And its impact on men as well. Mass incarceration has a long history. And so
absolutely.
This book was an attempt to expose that history from a female perspective.
Absolutely. Well, in your book, you talk about 1896 and Mattie Crawford. Mattie Crawford, who was convicted of murder by Meriwether County judge and sentenced to life imprisonment in the Georgia State Penitentiary. Tell us a little bit about Mattie Crawford and why she is so significant in this story.
So Mattie Crawford is so significant in this story because in 1896, as you mentioned, she killed her stepfather, who she said had been abusing her. And so she, brained him with a chair, is what the reports say. But when she was convicted, she was sent to a brickyard, and she was taught the blacksmith trade.
Okay.
What I should mention about Crawford is that she used blacksmithing as a way to gain greater mobility within the prison, system, and it allowed her to be able to, to leave the site of the prison, to go into people's, go into the city and to work as a blacksmith. But it was because the system wanted her, her labor. They forced her into this role. She was beaten out of her dresses and forced to wear, a suit of men's, a suit of men's stripes, and to do this work by force. But in but she ended up in 1903 being profiled in the Atlanta Constitution newspaper as the only woman blacksmith in America. Now, that is not the case. There were other women in the state of Georgia who were leased to prison camps that were working as blacksmiths, but she gained national notoriety through her work as a blacksmith in the prison system. So, she was able to take a really awful situation and kind of, use it to her advantage, and it did gain her greater perks within the system, but she was brutalized in the process.
Okay, so when we look at you're talking about after emancipation. So Civil War is 1861, 1865. We have the ratification of the 13th Amendment, December 6, 1865. And then we have the Black Codes instituted basically, you know, right after chattel slavery ends. We had the Black Codes instituted.
Right.
And then you have the sharecropping system largely in the South, and the convict leasing system basically 1865 to 1928. And the South is trying to figure out where's the labor force coming from to rebuild the South, plant the crops, things like this, because 4 million enslaved Africans were just set free. So you talk about in your book female sharecroppers and picking cotton, things like this, right? In Georgia. So talk about that and the significance of that. This is after slavery ends.
Yeah. So after slavery ends, you know, there are two ways that these white Southerners go about rebuilding their labor force.
Right.
Okay. So they use the convict lease system, right, and the system known as debt peonage.
Yes.
Where sharecroppers who were not able to make their quota, right, because the sharecroppers, they repaid their debt with the crop.
Right.
So any seeds or any shelter, any tools or resources that they were provided to be able to do that labor, they had to repay through their share of the crop. Well, if the crop failed, okay, then they were left in debt. The following year, they had to make up twice. They'd have to produce twice the crop. Another crop failed, you have to produce 3 times the crop.
Right, they're in debt, yep.
And so they stayed in a perpetual cycle of debt. And so for those individuals who would leave the land and decided, I'm never going to get out of debt, and they would leave the land, they could be arrested, put in jail, and then a landowner could come and purchase their labor and make them work until they said that it's time for them, to be released. So they would have to work for indiscriminate or indeterminable, periods of time.
Right.
And so the way that this affected black women is that, there were black women who were who worked as sharecroppers. Most black women actually were working as domestics in the city of Atlanta. A lot of them, were left and went to the city, and the men stayed behind and worked the land. But for those sharecropping families that stayed together in family units, the wives would oftentimes sharecrop with them. And some of those women were convicted and were sent to work on these debt peonage camps. And so, this is another part of this history of, labor extraction.
Exactly.
After emancipation, and how, black people, all the attempts to try to obstruct black people's social, political, and economic mobility. So they're using violence, they're using the criminal injustice system, they're using it, which includes the debt peonage system, the Black Codes. It's all about restricting black people's freedom or stripping them of their freedom.
Absolutely. Well, look, on page 25 of your book, Chained and Silenced Black Women in Convict Labor in the New South, you say to a large extent the debt peonage system, a type of forced labor, restored hegemonic authority to white planters, giving them the legal power to purchase black farm labor from county courthouses. The policies set forth in the Mississippi Black Code of 1865 were implemented in all the southern states, Georgia included. Every civil officer was granted authority to, quote, arrest and carry back to his or her legal employer any freedman, free Negro, or mulatto who shall have quit the service of his or her employer before the expiration of his or her term of service without good cause, end quote. It was left to the county magistrates to decide whether the, quote, alleged deserter shall be remanded to the alleged employer or otherwise disposed of, end quote. That's from page 25 of your book. So now, your work was featured in the Sundance-nominated documentary Slavery by Another Name, as well as a C-SPAN documentary called Left of Black. So, Slavery by Another Name, this deals with debt peonage. How does your work tie into that? And then we'll let people know how they can order your book also.
So, actually, debt peonage is one of the topics that I don't go into as much depth about in the book. I talk a lot more about convict leasing and the chain gang system.
Chain gang, right.
And so the chain gang system
I will say, had an equally devastating effect on black people and on black women as the convict lease system and as the debt peonage system that you laid out. So, unfortunately, I can't, speak in depth about the debt peonage system and specifically as it applies to Georgia because I didn't write as much about that. But
right.
I do want to throw in the fact that the chain gang system actually affected thousands more, tens of thousands more black people than even convict leasing did. Between 1901 and 1936, there were close to 3,000 black women sent to chain gangs and tens of thousands of black men sent to chain gangs in one state alone.
Which state was that?
Georgia.
In Georgia. Okay. So explain to, now, first of all, your work was featured in the Sundance-nominated documentary, Slavery by Another Name. So what aspect of your work, so this was a documentary, what aspect of your work was featured in that documentary? And then we'll go to the phone line in just a minute.
Okay. I was the expert that was invited to participate in that documentary and to speak about the experiences of women. Chained in Silence is the first book ever written on the history of working class incarcerated black women in the post-Civil War South.
Okay.
So I was invited to speak about their experiences, and I was the only person that spoke about women's experiences in that documentary. So that just shows that we have a long way to go with sharing and exposing that history.
Absolutely. And also, when they, a lot of times when these conversations come up, people say, what about the women? And then people who are trying to focus on the dehumanization of African-American men, some of them, not all of them, think that you're trying to take something away from African-American men by talking about the women, but you don't have to just elevate the conversation and include the women. It doesn't take anything away from focusing on African-American men because we've both been dehumanized. And I tell people in some of my lectures, I explain to people, I say we're all going through a 12-step process recovering from the side effects of white supremacy and racism. Okay, so we have to deal with both of them. All right, now.
That's right.
So
we shouldn't separate the stories. If it was an inclusive story, we wouldn't have to tell it in separate parts.
Absolutely. Okay, tell people how can they get your book?
So you can get the book online through Amazon.com or through the University of North Carolina Press website, BarnesandNobles.com, and pretty much any bookseller or vendor. You can order it online.
All right, now.
Any bookseller.
Okay, and in a minute here, because we have a few minutes left in the interview, in a minute I want you to talk about when slavery is erased from plantations. You'll be speaking at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History Tuesday, March 26, 2019, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. But very quickly, I want to ask you, explain to people the difference between the convict leasing system and the chain gang system, because a lot of people think they're the same thing. Explain the difference.
Okay, that's a great question. So the convict lease system affected felons and people who were convicted of quote-unquote crimes because a lot of times they were trumped-up charges and a lot of innocent people went to prison and died in these prison camps.
Right.
But usually if you were serving a term of a year or more, you were sent to a convict lease camp. If you were a misdemeanant and you were incarcerated for a year or less, you were sent to a chain gang. If you were unable to pay your fine, they would send you to a chain gang, and most black people were desperate and poor during this time period, and they could not pay fines, as quote-unquote low as $3. They didn't have that kind of money.
Right. So what would happen is that because of the black codes instituted in 1865, these were codes to regulate the newly freed enslaved Africans, and they would have all types of laws, vagrancy laws, and in some southern states, if you wanted to have a profession other than agriculture, you had to pay like a tax at the beginning of each year, something like that, right? And if you couldn't pay that tax, then you'd be sent to so they would send you to the chain gang or the convict leasing system, depending upon Okay, go ahead.
And if you couldn't pay, if you didn't have a job,
that's the other thing.
If you didn't have a job,
right,
quote unquote idle,
right,
you were sent to the chain gang.
Right.
And you were fined and sent to the chain gang. Because if you don't have a job, you don't have money.
Exactly.
So black people didn't even have the right to decide whether they wanted to work or not.
Right.
I've been enslaved all these years. Hey, I might want to take a little vacation.
Right.
But they didn't have that option.
They didn't have that option.
under white people's rule and authority. So, hey, some black folks didn't want to go straight back to work.
Right. I would encourage people to go to history.com, official website of the History Channel, and search for Black Codes, C-O-D-E-S. They have a good article there dealing with some of the history of the Black Codes, history.com. So tell us about when slavery is erased from plantations, because this is what you will speak on Tuesday, March 26th at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History.
Yeah, so I'll be speaking at the Wright Museum and talking about the importance of truth-telling at historic sites and plantations, particularly presidential plantations across the country. What I've found by visiting plantations such as the Monticello plantation, which I've visited about maybe 4 times now over the past 3 years, is that oftentimes the story of slavery is told as a separate story.
Right.
And that it's a segregated story. And so, you know, when you go inside of these presidential mansions, you hear about these presidents, how wonderful they were and how smart they were and how innovative that they were. And you get these, you know, you're sold these narratives of American exceptionalism.
Right.
But nobody talks about the enslaved population that made these men exceptional and was the basis for their wealth and built their plantations, right?
Right.
And so they, what I found is that you have to leave out of the mansion before you get any interpretation of slavery. You know, slavery is an option. You know, you opt in. You take optional slavery tours. It's not a natural extension of the narrative that that you're told within the household. Enslaved people are not even talked about inside of these households. Right. So what I want to talk about at the Wright Museum is how, you know, slavery is told, the story of slavery is told as a separate story, and how in some places, like, for example, you know, some of these Confederate museums, the story of slavery is not told at all. It's completely erased. This is that, you know, our ancestors did absolutely nothing, you know, to build the South, the plantation, the slavocracy, and the wealth, you know, these plantation holders extracted from our bodies and from black women's wombs that were used to produce more labor.
Exactly.
So these are the things that I plan to discuss.
And you talked about you visit the Monticello estate or plantation. That was Thomas Jefferson's plantation, and you and I had a conversation. You were saying how when you go, you have to when you go inside the actual mansion, there's no presence or evidence of enslaved Africans living inside the mansion, but they did. They did. Yeah. And same thing.
Sally Hemings is nowhere to be found inside of that mansion, and she gave birth to at least six of the man's children.
Right. So we
it's called from the basement of the house, and so when they talk about, you know, how many children did Thomas Jefferson have, they'll say he had 2 children. But downstairs, you know, when you get to Sally Hemings' shack or then a cabin, then he had 6 more.
Right.
Why can't you just say that the man had at least 6, you know, kids? He had
at least 8 children. At least 8 children. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
The man that why not talk about all of his children? Because he had 6 with his first wife. He had at least 6 with Sally Hemings.
Okay.
Some of the children died, and so he had a total of 4 living children with Sally Hemings and 2 living children with his wife Martha.
Right.
Why doesn't he? But in that house, he has 2.
Right.
What is that about?
So there's an attempt to try to sanitize the history, right? There's an attempt, and this also the reason why it's important for
a distance between him and slavery.
Create a distance.
600 slaves. How are you going to distance?
Exactly. And the reason why this history is so important is because when we talk about reparations, and then you have people saying, "Oh well, you know, I don't own any slaves. My ancestors didn't own any slaves." Well, wait a second. It was enslaved Africans who built this country. There were at least 262 skills, trades, and crafts that African people had in this country from 1619 to 1865 that built this country. Okay, so once again, you can visit the website. Let's see, uncpress.unc.edu to order her book, "Chained in Silence: Black Women and Convict Labor in the New South." And I think
Amazon.
Or Amazon.com. Will they have the book at the Charles H. Wright Museum when you speak there? Do you know?
I believe so.
Okay, so you'll be there Tuesday, March 26th, 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. I'll be there as well, so I'll get a chance to meet you. Give people your, if somebody wants to bring you in to do a lecture, we're out of time here. If somebody wants to bring you in to do a lecture, how do they get in contact with you?
You can get in contact with me through my email address at tll4y@virginia.edu.
All right.
tll4y@virginia.edu.
All right, sister, you have a great night. I'll see you Tuesday, okay?
Thank you. You too.
All right. Okay, guys, we got to get out of here. 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. Michael Imhotep, the African History Network show. Stay tuned for Pastor Mo. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.
And y'all need to hush.
All right, guys, we got to get out of here. Hey, turn that down here, Mike, for a minute. We got to get out of here, guys. Talk to y'all later. Pastor Mo's up next. All right, peace.